What do you think about archers? A lone hero with a bow, silent, cold-blooded, with nearly perfect aim. He shoots his enemy in the eye while galloping at full speed, knocks off helmets, disarms with a single shot. He's often compared to a modern sniper but wrapped in medieval aesthetics. The image is beautiful, dramatic, cinematic. We want to believe that warriors like Robin Hood really existed, that history knew marksmen capable of defeating dozens of enemies alone. But that's nothing more than a myth. Today, we'll uncover who the real archers were, look at them through the lens of history and fact, and answer the question, why were they so feared on the battlefield? A medieval archer was not an elite headhunter. He wasn't trained to shoot at specific targets. He didn't hunt down standard bearers or duel officers. Precision wasn't his strength, speed was. He rained arrows down on the battlefield, worked as part of a unit. On command, he released dozens of arrows per minute. He didn't choose his target, it was impossible and unnecessary. His task: sow fear, confusion, and break enemy lines. Archers fired in unison, shoulder to shoulder. The goal wasn't to hit everybody, but to hit somewhere. Because if 200 arrows hit the same area, someone will get hit. Even if 90% missed, the remaining 10% were enough to stop an army. What mattered was scale. The archer didn't look like a hero. He functioned like a mechanism. The battlefield was not a place for individual heroics. In the front stood shield bearers, ready to take the blow. Behind them, tightly ranked archers. They waited for the signal. One volley, a second, a third, and so on by command. Arrows didn't fly at specific enemies, but toward a direction. They covered entire sectors of the battlefield. They were fired in an arc in direct fire. This allowed them to strike from above, bypassing shields. The enemy saw dozens of black streaks flying overhead, felt arrows striking the ground, shields, and armor. The density of the volley was terrifying. Even a missed arrow could shift the course of battle. At Agincourt, the French cavalry died not from accuracy, but from panic and chaos. Arrows affected not only people but also horses, stopping them, breaking formations. History offers many examples of the superiority of archers on the battlefield, but more on that later. The true pinnacle of medieval engineering was the English longbow. It was a powerful weapon. Its draw weight could reach an incredible 45-70 kilograms. This required immense strength and constant training. At maximum range, an arrow could fly up to 250 meters. But at that distance, accurate targeting was nearly impossible, and piercing armor even more so. The real combat distance was 50-70 meters. Think of the 100 Years' War. English longbow units successfully held off charges by heavy cavalry from that medium range. Archery caused not only physical losses but also psychological shock. Imagine the sight of fallen soldiers, the screech of arrows, the pounding against shields and armor. An arrow was not a silent weapon. Some arrowheads were made to whistle to intimidate. The high-pitched whistle triggered fear and the urge to retreat. It was amplified by echoes, neighing horses, and the screams of soldiers. Panic often began with the horses. They lost control, threw off their riders, and broke formations. Knights on foot became vulnerable. Targeting horses was a deliberate strategy. They were the largest and most exposed targets on the battlefield. Were there cases of accurate shooting? Yes, during sieges and while hunting. When the enemy was 20-30 meters away and archers were shooting from above at advancing soldiers, siege towers, or ladders. In such cases, an archer could aim at the enemy's silhouette and had a high chance of hitting it. But even under those conditions, the shooting remained relatively imprecise. In battle, there was no time to aim carefully. The speed of fire was far more important. The Mongols, Turks, and Parthians used a different approach. Their bows were shorter and less powerful, but allowed shooting while moving even backwards at pursuing enemies. This tactic was called the Parthian shot. Accuracy was minimal, but not necessary. The key was mobility. For example, in the famous Battle of Cannae, the Carthaginians completely crushed the Roman army using mounted archers. They launched swift attacks on the legions, and despite the Romans' special formations, they suffered losses. The Mongols followed a similar strategy, and their army went on to conquer nearly half the known world. To be an archer meant to train from early childhood. In 14th century England, royal decrees required all men to learn archery. Constant training reshaped the body: broad shoulders, strong back muscles, and exceptional endurance. Numerous discovered skeletons confirm this. An archer was not a hunter, he was a professional warrior. An arrow was like a bullet, a valuable and costly combat resource. Ashwood for the shaft, goose feathers for fletching, forged iron heads, resin and glue, everything was made by hand. Arrows were designed for specific purposes: broad heads for tearing wounds, narrow heads for piercing chainmail, and whistling arrows for intimidation. Each archer was issued 6,100 arrows before battle, each weighing about 100 grams. After combat, Arrows were collected, repaired, and counted. There was an entire supply system for arrows, and it was treated with great importance. Over time, the culture of archery evolved into the age of firearms. You've probably seen it in movies how 17th-18th century musketeers and riflemen stood in ranks and fired by command, and volleys. Once again, the key was formation and numbers. It's important to understand that ancient weapons weren't accurate. They lacked precise ballistics and consistent components. The advantage came not from the quality of a single shot, but from the number of trained soldiers who could fire. Even under ideal conditions, hit rates rarely exceeded 50%, and in real battle there was no time to aim carefully. That's all from me. Thanks for watching. I'd really appreciate your like and subscription. See you in the next video.